Dr. Hashan. Dr. Hashan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sri Lanka Technological Campus, famously known as SLTC, warmly welcome you to its SLTC Insider. SLTC Insider is a webinar series which will be soon casted every last week of the month and probably on a Thursday. The objective of this series is to discuss an industry-related topic and thereby serve the community, serve the industry by giving a solution, by taking it to the next level. SLTC Insider is a proud work of the business faculty of SLTC and a dedicated team behind it. We have academics who worked very closely with this project and also a bunch of individuals who are behind the scene who's making it possible. SLTC Media Arm is behind the controls of live feed via YouTube and Facebook with IT team working very closely with them right now here in Paducah. We are live streaming from SLTC Campus Paducah and we are coming live to you with the inaugural SLTC Insider powered by SLTC Business School. From the industry and to the industry is the motto of SLTC Insider. And we are very happy to launch this inaugural session today. And without further ado, I will now ask Dr. Shami Pereira, Head of Mentoring and Coaching, Senior Lecturer, and an award-winning personality to do the welcome address. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hashan, for that lovely introduction, and I hope that I'm audible.
Yes, very much.
Right. So again, on behalf of the SLTC Business School, as Dr. Hashan very correctly said, the SLTC Business Insider is an initiation from the SLTC Business School to bring all the professionals and experts to share their insights in terms of the current economic status as well as the crisis and how we need to overcome this, how we can face these challenges. So it's a platform where we initiate as a knowledge sharing, and also that leads to knowledge creation in the long term as well. So I warmly welcome on behalf of the SLTC Business School each and every one of you present here today, our lovely audience and our faculty, the non-academics, our own students, to this wonderful knowledge sharing platform. As it's the inaugural session, I guess it's a wonderful topic that we have taken into consideration and a very timely topic into consideration today. And to discuss on this topic, the impact of the new tax proposal, changes and impact of income tax and VAT, which has a massive impact on our day-to-day lifestyle. So this topic will be discussed with us today, and the insight on this will be shared with us today. And we are honored to welcome Mr. Saman Disanayaka, the Senior Deputy Commissioner, Department of Inland Revenue, Sri Lanka, Mr. Atula Ranavira, the Managing Partner of Ranavira Associates and the Managing Director of Ascent Advisory Partners Private Limited, and our very own Dr. Damit Gangodavilage, the Senior Lecturer, SLTC Business School, to share their expertise and insight at this event. So I believe it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to clear our doubts if we have any, and to reshape our day-to-day activities based on these factors that affects our decision making moving forward. So I welcome all of you to be actively participative in this panel discussion, whereas if you have any questions, please feel free to inbox through the chat or ask questions from the panelists. If there is time permit, we will encourage that as well. So thank you once again for spending your lovely time with us. And the platform is open for you to gain massive amount of knowledge throughout our webinar series that will be conducted through the Business Insider of SLTC. Thank you very much. All the very best, Dr. Hashan. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shamini. That was a wonderful welcome. So with that insight, with that warm welcome, the impact of new tax proposal changes and impact of income tax, and of course, VAT. This is going to be a very hot topic today. And without further ado, I will now read out this. I'm honored to read this massive profile of a keynote speaker tonight. Profile of our very own Dr. Damit Gangodavilage. Dr. Damit Gangodavilage is an award-winning practicing academic count more than 20 years of experience in taxation and financial management locally and internationally. He's a lecturer and I beg your pardon, lecturer at the Faculty of Business Studies, Sri Lanka Technological Campus, and the founding managing director of Taxpert Sri Lanka Private Limited. Dr. Gangodavilage receives Swabhimani Digital Social Impact Award from the Information and Communication Technology Agency, ICTA, or we call it ICTA, in Sri Lanka, and NBQSA Award from BCS Chartered Institute of IT and National Inquity Award from SLASCOM. Also, he was nominated for Asia Pacific ICT Award, making a digital social impact on the taxation of ecosystem in Sri Lanka. As a multidisciplinary professional, Dr. Gangodavilage earned several professional and academic qualifications, including fellow member of Sri Lanka Institute of Taxation, AAT Sri Lanka, and Associate Certified Public Accountants. He is also a certified tax advisor. Dr. Gangodavilage holds a Master of Business Administration degree from the University of Southern Queensland, Australia, and a postgraduate diploma in Business and Financial Administration from the University of Cranfield, UK, in collaboration with CA Sri Lanka. He also holds a higher national diploma in accountancy from the Sri Lanka Institute of Advanced Technology Education. He is the founding member of Chartered Professional Managers in Sri Lanka. Dr. Gangodavilage earned his doctorate in entrepreneurship and compliance management from the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. He's a governing council member of AAT Sri Lanka and the director treasurer of Colombo Chamber of Commerce. He's a former vice president of the Sri Lanka Institute of Taxation. He's also a member of CMA Sri Lanka COVID-19 SME Development Committee, established by the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka, and an EXCO member of the SME Task Force established by the CA Sri Lanka. So with this heavy profile, I would now invite my dear friend, Dr. Damit, to do the keynote address. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Hashan. Very nice introductions given to me. So hope I'm audible and you can see my screen.
Yes, yes. Audible and we can see you.
Yes. Welcome everyone to the inaugural sessions of the SLTC Insider. So hosted by Business School, Faculty of Business Studies, Sri Lanka Technological Campus. As Dr. Shamini highlighted, so this is the session hosted by Business School faculty members together with the industry experts to share the insight of the business and how we can support as a university for the industry to sustain in this specifically in this critical moment. So with that, we thought let's start our Business Insider session with the recent tax amendments proposed by the government, because this is very much important and it is impacted to all the employees, not only in the university, in our university, and other employees of the organization, as well as the business crowd. So therefore, we thought let's talk about the income tax impact and the VAT impact, and then specifically recently that they have gazetted the Social Security Contribution Levy, which will going to impact or come to the operation from July 1st. So therefore, those things and together with other small changes we are going to discuss with you. So before I begin my presentation, so I want to ask one question from you all. So we all hearing or we are talking about tax. Probably before we come to this earth, we are starting to pay taxes. So what is actually taxes? You know what is taxes? So think a minute and give a meaning. What is tax? Right? So tax is my definition, is nothing but the price we paid for our well-being and civilization. So this is the social security payments which we need to pay to the government for our benefits, not only for the individual or somebody else benefit. So as a whole, everyone is benefited for payment of taxes. So there is a statutory meaning. So then other than that is a compulsory payment imposed by the government on the citizens and businesses. So more than that, we have to see this is for the public goods. We are paying our contribution to the government, who are collecting that's a tax authority collecting on behalf of the government. So that's the most important thing throughout the life. We have to keep it, because we know that death and tax we can't avoid. So this is these two things is the certain in the world, right? So even though you have the income, do you need to pay taxes? No, there's a reason for you to pay taxes. As per the Income Tax Act number 24 of 2017, you have to have taxable income or final withholding payments to make a tax payment. Otherwise, even though you earn the tax, even though you earn income while doing your employment, or you are running a business or some other investment activities, which is not going to liable for taxes, right? Our people are having the fear about taxes. Why? They don't know whether they need to pay the taxes or not. So this is the one objective of this series, to make the awareness of the general public about taxations, to remove the fear about taxes. So that's the whole objective, one main objective of this session. So therefore, what is taxable income actually? Right? If you are earning an employment income, salary basically, then your gross income most probably liable for taxes. That's the one. And if you're running a business, in the simple methodology terminology, if you reduce expenses allowed to deduct under the law from your revenue, then the remaining we can say is a taxable income. This is a very simple layman interpretation. But when you're going to tax law, then it is more than that. I'm not going to talk in that deeper. If you are earning the passive income, like interest income or a dividend, that's also liable for tax income, but subject to that if it is deducted. When you are going to receive this interest income or dividend, bank or the company who's paying dividend subject to deduct withholding tax. If this withholding tax is the final, which means those income are not going to tax further, then such situation we can say those are the final withholding payments. So you need to evaluate whether these kind of income you are having at the moment. If that then you are mandated to open tax file. The income is more than 250,000 per month or 3 million per annum at the moment. I'm going to discuss the changes effective from October. Right, this is the small understanding you need to get before you are going to discuss if you don't aware about the background of your tax liability. So when you're going to pay the taxes, now if you are liable to pay taxes, you need to register for taxes with the Department of Inland Revenue. Basically, you need to get the TIN number, tax identification number. Once you get the tax identification number, you need to be proud, because in the world, if you are paying taxes, all are going to recognize you as a social responsible payment person in the country, right? So there are a lot of other benefits around that. Now, to be a compliant taxpayer, you need to pay fair share of tax. Because I'm not saying the tax, then the fair share of tax, because you need to pay taxes proportionately. Basically, you need to contribute to the government income proportionate to your income. That's the way, because you need to no need to pay higher amount of taxes or lower amount of taxes, then it is a proportionate amount. So that has to be paid on or before the due dates. And not only that, there are two compliance obligations. One is a payment compliance, another one is the return compliance. Return also has to correct, with the correct detail, you have to file the return to the Department of Inland Revenue. Then you are going to be a compliant taxpayer. Otherwise, you are considered as a non-compliant taxpayer. Then there is a lot of consequences, because under the new Inland Revenue Act, your non-compliance is come under the criminal offense. So therefore, you need to be very careful on that. We are going to consider as a non-compliant taxpayer. So when you're going to do that, this is a voluntary job, because under the law, it's a voluntary job. You should know that you are having the tax liability, and then you need to get the registrations and pay the taxes and file the return. Otherwise, tax department will come behind you and ask to pay taxes. So that's under the enforcement action. So this is the current strategies used by the tax systems to collect the taxes. So usually that has to be comes from the people. When you look at the situation, current situation is a very sad situation, because we know that there are various major reform in the taxations or the period of last five years. Under the Yahapalne government, so they introduced very good tax system under through the Inland Revenue Act number 24 of 2017. It is effective from 1st April 2018. So they basically change principle-based tax system to the rule-based tax system. So you can see what's the revenue they have collected. Around nearly 1 trillion rupees they have collected. So then our incumbent president came to the power. Later in 2019, early in 2020, under the Vista of Prosperity, they have introduced the new tax proposal. So see what happened in 2020. So it's 50% drops the government revenue. So today, you and me are suffering. We are in the queue and we are waiting for the foods. We are waiting for the fuel. We are waiting for the gas because of these wrong decisions taken by the president and the government, right? Now, so then usually what happened? To be a strong government or the country, up to some to be a healthy economy, usually you have to have a 25% tax revenue to GDP. Otherwise, you are not a healthy country. Now, if you look at it prior to 2019, yes, we were about 20%. Our revenue to GDP is 21%. Today, it's fall down to the 8 to 8.6% revenue to GDP. So tax to GDP, it's fallen down to 7.7%. See, this is what hurdle or the difficulties we are facing today. Now, we as a nations or the citizens or the corporate citizens, we have the responsibility to correct that. I'm not going to talk about how these monies are going to be used. So that's a totally different discussions we have to have. But this is the awareness sessions, because before I come to that changes, so what is the current situation? Why we need to support country? Because ultimately, if you're not contributed and discharge my social duty, then I'm only suffering, not and my other fellow citizens are going to suffer. Therefore, with that, now again, Ranil Wickremesinghe came into the take prime ministership. So premiership after taken, again, he's trying to go back to his proposal introduced in 2018 under the Inland Revenue Act number 24 of 2017. So those are the proposals he's going to achieve the revenue targets and reverse these 523 billion rupees to the 1 trillion. So that's the main target, of course, because 89% out of total government revenue, 89% comes from the taxes. So for that, what's the introductions they have done, made the proposal? This is still proposal, bill has to issued, and then we need to see what are the other things going to change. Now we know that, as I explained, up to 3 million rupees is exempted from taxes. Basically, we call as a tax-free allowance. If you are an individual, if you are earning a salary, or if you are running a sole proprietorship business, or after partnership, you are going to receive the profits. So your annual income or the profits up to 3 million is not liable, was not liable to taxes. Basically, up to 250,000 per month was not subject to taxes. Beyond that only, it was subjected. Now, when it was subjected, it is liable to tax at 6% to 18%. So that's how. Then you had the 1.2 million expenses relief. Then that 250,000 goes to the 350,000. So that's how you enjoy benefit, and you are enjoying benefits up to now till September 30th. More than that, you got the 600,000 solar relief as well, and rent relief 25%. So those are the things you enjoy. Now this system is proposed to change with effective from 1st October, right? Reducing tax-free allowance 3 million to 1.8 million. Now, your income is subject to tax when you are receiving monthly above 150,000. So if you are receiving above 150,000 per month after October, then you are subjected to taxes in the country. Then you have to open a tax file. That's the mandatory requirements in the country at the moment. And not only that, there is another impact. So your tax rates is that a slab has been expanded and rate is increased from 4% to 34%. So is this going to be a major hit to all the employees or individuals who are earning income? So that's the major change. So then you need to look at, so how is your income, and this is in employment income, business income, investments income, all together you need to look at. If you don't have the business and investment income, then only salaries is subject to that, right? So that's the one proposed changes made to the made by the Prime Minister. So this is the impact you can see. So here there is a comparison for your benefit. Let's say your income after that's a taxable income after deducted relief and everything. So your income is around, let's say 3 million, right? 6 million. Then you need to pay basically how much? You need to pay 540,000 under the current system. Now the proposed system, if you are going to get the 6 million around, it's going to increase to the 480,000. So that's the current tax changes. So this is increase. Yeah, that's how it is. If you're going to earn more than 9 million rupees, then 540,000 minimum you have to pay under the current system. Revised system 1 million. The 50% is increased under the new system, right? So then the other one is the changes or reintroduce the tax deducted at source. Commonly we call as the withholding taxes. So withholding taxes introduced. Now there are different withholding tax. We know that if you are subject, your salary is subjected to withholding tax. That's earlier we call as a PAYE tax, payee. Then it has been revised to the APIT, Advanced Personal Income Tax. So now at the moment it's optional. From October, it is going to be mandatory. If you are going to earn remuneration from your employer above 150,000, then mandatorily your employer has to deduct APIT, Advanced Personal Income Tax, based on your remuneration level. So then the other one that at the moment is a 250,000. Then the other one, advanced income tax. So advanced income tax is liable for liable on the interest income, dividends, rent, and then the other social professional services payments you are going to make it to the contractors or the independent consultants. So if you are going to receive interest income or the dividend, it is subject to 5% withholding tax. Bank will deduct 5%, and your company deduct the 5% on the dividends going to be distributed. So then that will be the final. Those are the final withholding payments. And then if you are going to receive the rent income, your rent income more than 100,000 per month is subjected to withholding tax or the advanced income tax at 10%. Professional services, if you are a consultant, independent consultant, if your monthly independent consultant payment is 100,000, then it is subject to 10% withholding tax called as the advanced income tax. All other cases, then the other one important thing, all other cases also 10%. So other important thing, if you are a senior citizen, about 60 years of age, this was earlier, it was there, up to 1.5 million interest income is exempted from withholding tax. They can basically enjoy this interest income because of their senior citizen in the country. So that relief again introduced back to the tax law with effect from October. So this is the major one they have done. So there is a lot of impact. You need to look at several ways of your income subject to taxes. Then when it comes to the corporate, so then the corporate income tax is subjected to taxes. Earlier, SMEs and the lower rate 14%, it is increased to 15%, and 24% normal rate is increased to 30%. All the other rate, manufacturers 18%, and liquor, tobacco, and betting and gaming, so 40%, it's not changed. So that's the other one. So this will be elaborated by the panel further with regards to your queries, And the other one, certain relief or the holidays or exemption has been removed, right? So it is effective from 1st April 2023. Dividend paid by a resident compared non-resident person, now it is exempted, it's liable for taxes. So other one, now there is expenses if you are doing the marketing and communication. So there was a 200% deduction. So this additional deductions 100% is removed. Now only 100% can be deducted. And then certain other exemptions. So given the construction materials, recycling, and TVET concept, under TVET concept, there were company business entities has been started to give the vocational training. And then the ship manufacturers, boat manufacturers, and also communications tower installation, construction stuff, and the warehouse related offshore businesses. All these exemption has been removed with effective from 1st April 2023. And then other one, other than that income changes, VAT has been revised. So threshold is reduced from 300 million per annum to 120 million. And with that, together with 8% VAT rate has been increased to 12%. And also condominium are liable to taxes, VAT value-added tax. It was exempted, that and the condominium residential apartment. And the other one, tourist businesses was exempted if they have 60% value additions, local value addition. Now this 0% on VAT is bring it to the 12% VAT effective from 1st October 2022. And the other one, you know, telecommunication is a major hit. Telecommunications services subjected to value-added taxes, and the and also the telecommunication levy, internet and the telecommunications services. So current 11.25% telecommunications levy increased to 15%. Now there is a cascading effect. Therefore, your internet services subjected to 17.35 because of the value-added taxes, and also other telecommunication services, SMS and voice communications taxes will increase to 35% nearly because of these changes. Right. And then the betting and gaming levy, because it's a certain industries is applicable. So then they increase the annual levy from 200 million to 500 million. Of course, that's a good thing. And then the if we are carrying out Hello. Hello.
Yes, doctor, we can hear you.
Doctor, I think you need to take the presentation.
Share the screen. Okay, fine.
So,
People, just give us a minute. We will
my
be.
power is gone.
All right. Okay. Just bear with me for a while, and then I'll come back to you with the share screen.
Extremely sorry for the inconvenience, you know, that under current situation. So this is the problem we are facing because of electricity. So now I need to move to my mobile phone. So until he comes, okay, coming, good. So can you go to the next slide, please? Right, betting and gaming. So then the new one, so then the taxes is the social security contribution levy. So the our nation building tax, we know that it was the exist 2019, it was abolished, and now again they introduced the new tax called social security contribution levy. So 21st June it was gazetted, and it is probably will effective from 1st July 2022. So then the panel will further elaborated on that, and the whoever importing article to the country at the point of imports, you need to pay 2.5% SSCL, and also manufacturers of any articles, service providers. Now, education services also subjected to this, and wholesale or retail of any article also subjected to the social security contribution levy. So then but there is a turnover, because your turnover, next, before slide, doctor. So then the 120 million, thank you, 120 million. So then the before, as of June, the last 12 months, if your turnover exceed 120 million rupees, then you are subjected to register with the with the Department of Inland Revenue for payment of social security contribution levy. Else, if your turnover is going to exceed or likely to exceed 30 million per quarter in the future, then within 15 days you need to register for the taxes, these taxes. So as I explained, it's a 2.5%. Then you have to pay based on the liable turnover. Liable turnover is vary. Importers 100%. Then the manufacturers, out of turnover 85% is subjected to taxes, and service providers 100%, and the distributors who registered distributors, not the total, but 50% of turnover subjected to SCCL, and the other wholesale and retailer other than the distributors 25% of their turnover subjected to SCCL. These are the liable limits you need to remember when you are going to pay the tax. This tax. Next slide, please. Doctor, next slide. Okay. Now, all your income is not subject, turnover is not subjected to SCCL, because there are exempted articles. So then the exports manufacturer are exempted, and then the fertilizer, petroleum, LP gas, right, and then the pharmaceutical items, and also if you are manufacturing and selling products under the strategic development project to the other strategic development project with the approval of Minister of Finance, that is exempted, and fresh milk, green leaf, cinnamon, rubber, whatever those things are exempted at the moment, those are the exempted article. And exempted services, next slide please. There are exempted services. Electricity generation other than the Ceylon Electricity Board is subject to that. Then you need to remember that your electricity bill going to increase by 2.5% in the future. Medical services exempted, water exempted, transports of goods and passengers is exempted, life insurance, central bank services, and then the government department ministries services are exempted. ETF, EPF, and all these pension funds services are going to exempt from the SSCL. Next slide, please. Right. So payments, I explained that to be a compliant taxpayer, you have to have a payment compliance and the return compliance. So then the payment every month, 20th. So then the last month, turnover, you need to pay taxes on this month 20th or not before 20th. So then that is at the time of imports, importer has to pay, all others has to pay on monthly basis, and the return in quarterly basis. So when you're having the quarter, let's say April to June is your quarter, and the end of the quarter, July, before 20th July, you need to submit the tax return. So these are the things. If you're not done this, there's two compliance issues, penalties, non-payments, 10% on the default amount, and further 2% every month or the dates you are late. Then basically if you late more than the 1.5 months or 2 months, then the 12% has to be paid as a penalties on default payment. If you are not filed your quarterly returns, then the 50,000 will be charged as the penalties for non-filing of your SCCL return. So these are these will be a massive amounts for certain businesses. Right. Next slide, please. All right. Okay. Thank you. So these are the changes. So then this will be further elaborated and discussed with the in the panel. So we have the panel from the industry and the administrator. So then thank you very much. Then if there is any questions and queries, so I'm also available to answer with the panel. Dr. Hashan, screen is over.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Damit. It was a very elaborative explanation with regards to how we are being taxed. And basically now you just gave us, within a couple of minutes, you gave us a total, in total, how this process works. Before I switch over to the other one, you said there are two things are eternal, that is death and tax, right? And I just want to ask, before I switch over to the other, to the panel discussion, Doctor, is this the what you call the new the changeover to the new Prime Minister? You think he will bring back the former tax assignments by abolishing what happened earlier? Will he be able to recover? Dr. Dame?
You're asking from me, no?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Just a simple explanation. We have a changeover of premiership, and you said that they have recovered billions of rupees with the earlier Yahapalne government, but now he's back in power. Do you think that he'll bring back the same thing?
Okay, good questions, Hashan. Now, looking at the current situation, so I know that Mr. Atula and Mr. Saman will be further elaborated on this matter. Now, actually, when you look at the proposal or the manifesto issued by the incumbent president under the Start of Prosperity, their aim was to reduce the budget deficits to 4%. Now, actually, budget deficits was 9.6% in 2019. So right. Because of these changes they brought in 2019 and 20, budget deficits increased in 2021 to 12.2%. Right? So then now we need to do the massive changes. But when you look at that, the current tax, the number of files, right? So then the 2020, because of these changes, the persons who paying PAY is reduced to 209,000 from 1,100,000. So basically, if you look at the executive and above in the country, there are more than nearly 2 million. We have the 8.6 million workforce, including this government and private. So all the people from the different levels of income. Right, and then the withholding tax files was 1,627. It was reduced to 650. So then the question is, whether that revenue that government can achieve this target is a good question, because looking at these numbers, so then without increasing the tax base, my argument is increasing tax rates or introducing new tax is not the solution to achieve these losses or the fix this gap. Because all the people in the system has to pay taxes, but new people has to bring into the tax system, Dr. Hashan. Right. So then that means, so you need to expand your tax base.
Yes.
Because when you look at the businesses, there are more than 1 million business entities in the country. But there are 200,000 tax files in the country. So Mr. Saman can correct me. And then out of that, only 52% are making the on-time compliances. See the issues. Probably if you see companies, there are 150,000 above companies in the country. Out of that, 50% all registered for paying taxes.
Oh, okay.
And then, so this is the issue here. So then not only introducing these taxes, because if you are introducing taxes or increase the tax rate, the burdens come to the person in the net. So they are the 33% of the business and citizens only in the country paying taxes. So then the entire 89% of the government revenue comes from these people.
Absolutely.
So therefore, the government has to change the policy to bring the people to the tax net. Otherwise, so then whatever the policies they brought into the tax system will not work to achieve the revenue target, because at the moment you see that major hit into the employees or the individuals, right? So their disposal income is going to reduce further and further because of this economic crisis. Then it will be a challenge, because first business and the individual look at their business or the families before making taxes. Then I hope that Mr. Saman and the department will have the big trouble in the future in recovery or the collections, tax collection, because of they don't have the disposal income to pay the taxes. So this is the challenge. So therefore, it is a challenge. If they manage it well, yes, they might be able to achieve the targets, Dr. Hashan.
Thank you. It's absolutely a wonderful explanation. The tax system, what is going to happen next. Thank you very much, Dr. Gamit Ganguduwilam. We are privileged to hear this today in this massive output of what you said just a while ago. Before we switch into the other one, SLTC Insider will have its own arms, which is going to happen very soon. It will have a web page on its own, a newsletter on its own that will go to the industry, that will be in SLTC library as well to read for anyone who wants to read about each and every segment of what we do from today onwards. Also, we are live via FB and YouTube, and the topic today is the impact of new tax proposal changes and impact of income tax and VAT. And next, on July 28th, let me remind you, July 28th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m., we'll be having the second program that will go as Building Resilience in the Newest Normal. That is Business Challenges Ahead. So another very prime topic to discuss. I'm sure industry veterans will come in and we'll have another session lined up for you. So I'm now transferring myself to introduce the panel members. We have two panel members there. That is Mr. Saman Disanayake, Senior Deputy Commissioner, Department of Inland Revenue of Sri Lanka. And I have 4 facets to read about this prominent gentleman. Educational background, if I mention about Mr. Saman Disanayake, well, it's a very lengthy one, Mr. Saman. But let me introduce to the audience as to who you are, to carry your weight. Graduate from the University of Peradeniya in 2000. In year 2000, honors in Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics with second class upper division pass. Earned MA in Economics from the University of Kelaniya in 2014. Obtained Master of Business Administration in Taxation from the Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Sri Javadhanapura in 2018, earned Masters of Business Accounting from the University of Kelaniya in year 2019. Professional qualifications, if I go on reading, fellow member of Institute of Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka, FCPM, fellow member of Taxation Institute Incorporated in Sri Lanka, member of Chartered Public Finance Accountants of Sri Lanka, member of Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy in United Kingdom, Chartered Tax Advisor offered by CASL, contribution making to the society as a lecturer and resource person This is one of the facts that we selected you, sir, for the panel of your contribution to the society. Visiting faculty member in MBA taxation at PIM University of Sri Lanka. Visiting faculty member in Master of Business, I guess, am I right? Accounting at University of Kelaniya. Visiting lecturer, Faculty of Management, Sri Jayawardena University. Visiting lecturer, Faculty of Management, Uvavelas University. Lecturer in CTA programs and DSA degree programs, and resource person for tax seminars at CASL. Lecturer in Diploma in Applied Taxation and resource person for tax seminars at AATSL. Lecturer of Taxation Diploma Programs, founder of Diploma in Applied Value Added Tax, and resource person for tax seminars at SLIT. And he has publications as well. Forensic Accounting for Tax Governance, ICAR, year 2019, published by Department of Accountants, University of Kelaniya. Role of tax consultant in new normal under digital tax environment. Again, ICAR, ICAR, year 2020, published by Department of Accountants, University of Kelaniya. Money is not an evil if one spends it wisely. The Professional Manager, 18th issue, April 2020, published by PIM. So that's Mr. Saman Disanayak, our prominent panelist. And we have another gentleman, that is Mr. Atula Ranavira. I hope you can hear me, sir. Mr. Atula Ranavira is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, the Institute of Certified Management Accountant of Sri Lanka, and the Institute of Accounting Technicians of Sri Lanka. He also holds honors degree in business administration from the University of Sri Jayawardena. Further, he serves as an independent director of few public companies, PLCs, where he also chairs the audit committees. Mr. Ranavira counts over 45 years of experience in the accounting profession. He is the managing partner of Ranavira Associate Chartered Accountants while serving as the managing director of Ascent Advisory Partners Private Limited, engaged in consultancy services. Further, he is a consultant to Ascent Secretarial Consultant Private Limited, engaged in company secretarial services. In addition to the audit practices, Mr. Ranavira has a wide experience in tax, company secretarial services, and in investment advisory and promotions. Further, he is actively participating in educational services, including involved in preparation of taxation textbooks of leading accounting professionals institutions in Sri Lanka, conducting lectures and seminars in taxation at these institutions. As part of his CSR project, he has launched a YouTube channel under the name of Tax Talk to share his knowledge in the fields of taxation, company secretarial services, foreign direct investments, and BOI approval. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the panelists that we have, very power-packed. And let me now open the panel discussion, and you can post your question to the chat box. The chat box is open, and let me take these two questions from the chat box, of course. Just give me a minute. Let me open the questions for you. Right. I would like to direct this question to Mr. Saman. As an administrator, and under this economic crisis, what is the rationale and the background of introduction of these proposed tax changes? Over to you, sir.
Very good evening, everyone. I think I am audible to everyone.
Yes, very much.
If you consider 2019 November 2019, as Dr. Damit properly highlighted, if we consider the policy document of the present government, when the President Gotabaya competing for the election, Stars of Prosperity and Splendor is the policy document. In singular, we are using as the Saubhagya Dakni. It consists of some kind of the tax cut. It has been introduced as two waves. First wave as the emergency relief plan, which introduced in from the December 2019, and second wave is budget 2020. As per the two processes or two waves, government remove some taxes like nation building tax, then economic service charge, and debt repayment levy. Directly impact on the tax revenue, and totally tax revenue has been impacted on the government revenue. On the other hand, government reduced the VAT rate from 15% to 8%. On the other hand, VAT liable threshold has been increased from 3 million to 75 million per quarter. If we consider annually, it is 300 million. Then most of the active VAT files has been deactivated by the IRD due to those changes. In addition to that, regarding income tax, number of concession has been introduced because as per the government policy framework, small and medium sector has been considered as driven wheel of the economy. Then tax concession has been granted for that sector to grow without hassle from the tax system. Due to those policy changes, as Dr. Damit highlighted, individual income tax rates which are applicable for the individual as per the original act, Inland Revenue Act number 24 2017, has been reduced with the tax-free level increasing from 500,000 to 3 million, and also additionally expenditure relief 1.2 million has been introduced. On the other hand, tax slabs has been reduced. Sorry, tax slabs has been increased to 3 million slabs. Then maximum tax rate has been reduced from 24% to 18%. As a result, what was happened? As Dr. Damit properly highlighted, in 2019, tax to GDP ratio was around 14%. Then 2019, it has been reduced to 12.7, and in 2021, it is 8.7. And we consider the revenue contribution from the Inland Revenue Department as per the annual report of the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue. The contribution has been reduced. In 2019, it was 6.83 from the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue. It has been reduced to 3.5% in 2021. You can see that gap. Since tax contribution has been reduced up to that level within the country, there is a rupee crisis. Actually, it leads to the rupee crisis, not the foreign currency. Then it indirectly leads to the foreign currency. As a result, what is the economic crisis we are facing today? It has been affected badly in the sectors and the country. Then present Prime Minister again introduced what are the taxes we had around 2015 onwards, and we can see same changes happening continuously.
Right. So that clears certain aspect. I was going through most of the questions that's coming through. I was going through it. I will now like to direct this question to Mr. Atula. As a practitioner, you are representing the industry. Under the current economic turmoil, how do you look at these proposed changes? Over to you, Mr. Atula.
Yeah. With the current situation, as we know, not only the general public, but also all business people are also in a bad financial situation. Now, the business people are struggling for survival. Now, we can very well see the situation. One main reason may be this fuel shortage, because they can't carry out their businesses. Even that is badly affected the export sector, even agriculture sector, tea plantation even. Now, some of these factories are having a lot of difficulties of running these factories. And transport issues. The cost of transport has almost gone 3 times now. With all these things, not only the consumers, domestic consumers, but also the manufacturers and service providers are also badly affected. Now, I think their aim is to survive at this difficult journey. But at the same time, as we discussed, the tax revenue has badly come down. The tax revenue has badly come down. Now, as we discussed, the tax revenue to the GDP has almost dropped from 12.7% to almost about 8.7%. It's a major reduction. And when we take the budget deficit, the government budget deficit, it has gone up from 9.6% in 2019 to almost 12% in 2021. Now, even if we'll go beyond that, the government debts to the GDP, earlier it was in 2019, it was only 87%. Now in 2021, it has gone up to 104.6%. That means our debt servicing is more than our income. Now with that situation, I can say not only the government, but all consumers, domestic consumers, as well as the business people, everybody are in a difficult situation.
All right. Okay. Mr. Atula, yeah. I want to progress further with this whole thing to the second round of questions. Dr. Damit, there's one question that to achieve the underlying objectives of the proposed changes, what the government or the policymakers have to do to achieve the underlying objectives of the proposed changes, what is their role as a policymaker?
Yes. Now it's good that is, as Mr. Atula and Ms. Saman highlighted. So then we are in the very critical situation. So then it should be a collaborative effect actually. Not only the administrator can do this task. This cannot be handled by the administrator itself. Now the collaborative effect, because Minister of Finance as a policymaker and the central bank together with the tax consultant has to be taken this challenge, because otherwise it will be the very challenging task for the administrator to achieve this target. Because when you look at the taxpayers, they are very hesitant to directly contact with the tax administrator. So Mr. Saman knows that because he's also a researcher, right, in the tax field. He knows that very well. But then these different forces actually, not only these taxpayers or the tax administrator, central bank, Ministry of Finance. So tax consultant also has to contribute.
Right. Someone as a person who represent the tax administrator, do you think that the target revenue can be achieved? What is your view on this?
Yes, I think it can be. Then let me explain it with what is the model I am discussing. I am highlighting it as a 6 forces model.
Okay.
Or 60 concept. That means tax legislator, then tax administrator, then taxpayer, tax consultant, tax adjudicator, and tax informant. In any tax system.
What's the last one?
Tax informant. I think it is somewhat new to the people because that is a model that I have developed in my studies.
Okay.
Then if these role players are properly working, I think what are the government targets in a critical situation like today we can achieve. As Dr. Damit highlighted that what is the aim of the tax legislator and tax administrator is increase the tax revenue by increasing the high tax compliance rate. On the other hand, taxpayer is the person who is always within the burden. With his pocket is in a trouble. Then tax consultant can do the tax consultation for planning tax. But it should not be beyond the planning. That means it should not be aggressive tax plan. That is why I told you. Then in addition to that, other two role players in the system, that adjudicator, that without dragging the tax cases, decision should be quickly given, because this is interpretation of the law. Therefore, it can be done. On the other hand, the developed countries, tax informants are properly working. In our country, as our experience, tax informants are providing information. Then it will be great help for the country to increase the tax revenue. I think all 6 role players should do their duty properly to increase the tax revenue. Then it can be achieved.
Right. Saman, you think that these 6 players or 6 roles that you defined as your model, is it currently existing in our country, or is it vague?
Yes, everyone is available. But what are the roles available with that? Whether as a responsible citizens of the country, that is the question. Whether everyone is working. For example, if you consider recent tax changes, what we are discussing today, as a policy maker, we should have at least more than 5-year tax policies, other than changing every year. That is the point in the policy makers side, legislator. Then I think tax administrator always in trouble because whatever the policies designed by the legislator should be enacted by the administrator. That is the role of the administrator. On the other hand, taxpayer also in trouble because he has to pay taxes, whether like or not. Then in other side, tax consultant can do a proper role with ethical background and considering the ethics and whatever the professional career that they are running. Therefore, that is why I told you and I explained that we have to do tax planning, not the aggressive tax planning, which leads to tax evasion or tax frauds. In addition to that, tax informant role is vital in any tax system. That is my concern.
Thank you. Atula, what's your view on this whole thing? Are you with this? You think that these targets can be achieved, like what Dr. Damit and Saman elaborated in a very wider view? What's your view, Atula?
Mr. Atula, you are muted.
Mr. Atula, you have to unmute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it is achievable. But only thing, to achieve all these things, we have to build the trust of these taxpayers. Now the taxpayers, as part of the general public, the trust has lost with the government. No doubt about that. The trust has lost with all politicians, not only the governing bodies politicians, but also all 225 politicians plus whoever the people who are out. They have lost that. Now the main reason is the corruption. Now we have to eliminate the corruption and build up a culture where we can see that our tax money works something. Then the second thing, the efficiency of our employees. Now, especially the government sector. I know, now we know it's a public secret. A lot of government employees, though the government is paying their remuneration, sometimes we are not getting a sufficient service for the remuneration. Now in the private sector, definitely they can't survive. If they are not providing the proper service, they have to go out. But in the government sector, that is not in operation. Therefore, the second thing is there. The third thing, as Mr. Saman very well mentioned, that there has to be long-term plans, not only the tax, but also all administrative related things including the taxation, there we have to have long-term plans. Now, even when we are getting down foreign direct investment, this is one of the biggest barrier what we have. The foreigners, when they are investing, they are asking whether the government will change the law. This is a common question. In most of the cases, this is a common question. Every time they are changing laws. We shouldn't change like that. The other thing, the most important thing is to improve the practical knowledge, not only the theory knowledge, practical knowledge of our educated people. Now we have so many graduates and the people who are having a lot of academic qualifications, but when we take the practical side of it, it is not up to the mark. Therefore, anyway, gradually we are moving towards more practical aspects, but we have to hurry up that, and we have to have all our educated people with practical background. Those are the things which is very much important with relate to this. Thanks.
Let me take a quick fire with regards. Thank you, Atula. Thanks for that. Let me take a quick fire now with some questions that have been posed from the audience out of the chat box. Anton Kevin is asking a couple of questions. Let me take one by one, and one of you can answer. Trading activity, buying and selling, liable to VAT or not?
Liable. It is liable as far as you are meeting the threshold. Then you are liable to pay VAT on that. Right.
If an importer who sells at wholesale, so he have to pay 2.5% at import, and at the point of sales too, how the employee going to deduct expense relief?
Yeah. Now, what will happen at the time of import? We'll say it's a consumable item. We import. At the time of import, the Director General of Customs will charge 2.5%. Then the importer has to add that to the cost because there's no input tax system in this. Then the cost will go up by 2.5%. Then he may be giving it to a distributor. Then distributor, as per the latest change of the bill, the distributor has to pay this SSCL on 25% of the turnover of that distributor. That is only if it is a local product. If it is imported things, anyway, 50% of the turnover he has to pay. Then it might go to another wholesaler. That wholesaler also has to pay on 50% of the turnover. Again, the retailer. Retailer also has to pay on 50% of the turnover. Likewise, generally, if we take an average percentage, I think all other than these few exemptions, all the other consumable, all other articles as well as services, prices will go up by average of by about 5%. Now, certain things may be even 10%, but average it may be about 5%. But now our issue, whether this 5% is a bearable thing at this juncture, okay. The consumer. So 5%, increasing 5% is huge. It is not small. Therefore, I think this will directly affect to the ultimate domestic consumer's price.
Okay, I'm coming to that, and there's few more. Dividend received by the company is a final tax or not? Dividend received by the company is a final tax or not?
Yeah, as far as 14% withhold, now in future there will be 14% withholding tax. As far as 14% withholding tax is paid, that will be a final.
Okay, why withholding tax on service income only to proprietors and not a company and partnerships? And then ask the same thing.
No, that 5% withholding tax is only on the individual. Earlier we had this. That is to catch all the people who are not paying tax, because the government thought that some of these individuals who are getting this income, they are not declaring and paying tax. That is on that ground only they have introduced this 5% withholding tax only on individuals, including the professionals, right? But government thought that all entities, the entities are declaring this income as part of their income. Anyway, they are paying their normal income taxes. On that ground only, they are proposing to reintroduce this 5% withholding tax only on individuals.
All right. Nadika Suranjana is asking, will there be any benefit of having expenditure reliefs for an individual with employment income, interest and dividend income subject to what at source? Will there be any benefit of having expenditure reliefs for an individual with employment income, interest and dividend income subject to what at source?
No, at source, you are not getting any benefit like that. At source, nothing. But if we are to get this benefit, the expenditure benefit, you have to open an income tax file and declare your income, file your tax return, declare your income and ask for a refund of that overpayment. If you are having any other income other than the employment income, then you can set off that whatever the overpayment against that.
All right. Okay. Anton Kevin is giving us the what do you call the leverage to the third round. He's asking. We were about to discuss this topic. If an individual having only rent income of 110,000 per month and 1.32 million per year have to pay WHT, withholding tax.
Yes, withholding tax is there, but ultimate individual tax is not there because there will be personal allowance of 1.8 million. But in the case of withholding tax, no sooner your payment goes beyond 100,000 a month, the withholding tax will be applicable.
Supply of water is not liable for SSCL. Sales of drinking bottled water also not liable or not?
No, definitely this water, they will define it as only water supplied by national water.
Okay. I'm going to direct this question. We just took a preamble to the third round. Under the proposed changes, employees and individual taxpayers have the major burden. So how do they need to comply with these changes? Ms. Atula, thanks a lot of covering a lot of ground for us. This question now goes to someone under the proposed changes, employees and the individual taxpayers have the major burden. So how do they need to comply with these changes? And we'll take a preamble from someone and we'll come back to you, and Damit.
Yeah, it's a very good question because as per the Inland Revenue Act number 24, 2017, and it's introduced as original act, pay as you earn tax, as it is a mandatory tax. Okay. And also employees are liable for making that payment, but the employer is the person who is responsible for deducting pay and making payments to the government. Then, in the original act, withholding agent and withholdee both are liable for non-compliance. If they make a mistake or anything, then that is the rule. Then what was happened with the amendment made to the act from the 1st January 2020, APIT has been replaced to the pay and it becomes the non-mandatory, only mandatory for the non-resident people and the retirement payment. Then what is the government expectation was, like the developed countries, people who are within the threshold limit will open the tax files, and with that intention, having a tax file for the every person. I think you have experience with Australia and some other New Zealand like countries. To get the benefit, they have to open a tax file. That is the original concept of the Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor, and that was the intention. But since we are a developing country and according to our culture, as Mr. Atula properly highlighting that in our country, that what is the output of the taxes are not properly appear to the public. Although we made some notices or some publications or some advertising, but it should be with the people in mindset. You have to change that attitude. Then to change that attitude, it should be done. Then what was the intention of the government not properly happened? Then if it is not self-compliant system is not properly worked, then what is we have to do? Again, we have to use the legislation. Then what is the government introduce? Reduce the tax threshold again and increase the tax rates, and also a bit change as the mandatory rule. Then again, we have to go to the 2017 original act, and employer should do his duty as the withholding agent, because again, withholding tax has been reintroduced for all the sectors. Then I think whatever the loose revenue by the government as a result of that, who are the people not properly make the payment or not deduct the taxes, then I think government can earn that revenue. That should be the expectation of the government. And what is the rationale behind it? Then on the other hand, let me give another point here. Employers are ready to do that. On the other hand, I noticed that from the universities and some of places where I am working with our lecturers, they highlighted when the withholding tax was there, monthly they deduct the payment and happen everything properly. Then when it comes to the quarterly payment, it is a big amount. And after getting the money, sometimes, as Mr. David highlighted, when the employer deducts the withholding, whatever received as the money, we think that is the disposable income of us. Then, but if the gross income is received, then if we spend, then we are in a trouble. Therefore, I think for the employment income, this the new introduction will be better.
Right. It's absolutely clear. Someone, there was an expense relief. I mean, this question being asked. Prior to these proposed changes, individual and employees can claim expenses relief up to 1.2 million. Right. As the APIT is going to be mandatory from October onwards, what will happen to the expenses relief? Is it allowed or not allowed to claim?
Now, Dr. Hashan, as per the APIT also, when we deduct the withholding tax, we do not consider the expenditure relief, because qualifying payment or expenditure relief we do not consider, because when preparing the tables and everything, technically we cannot cater for it. Therefore, what is the general application is available in the pay scheme and APIT scheme are gross revenue is considered, and whatever the liability should be calculated using the relevant tables, and employer should deduct that amount, either tax on tax system or normal scenario, or on the other hand, these days we are talking about that some government institution has borne the tax liability of the employees. Okay, likewise.
Okay. Right. Atula, let me direct this question to you. We have seen in the presentation, it was proposed to reintroduce advanced income tax. So do you think whether the government can achieve its revenue target through reintroduce of advanced income tax?
Yeah, that will be a very difficult task, because in future, what will happen, the income, to get that income, the tax base has to be there. Now, the people, their income will be very much less in future. Now, in these days, of course, with this panic situation, business people may be making more and more money with the existing stocks. But this won't long last. Therefore, in future, the business income will gradually come down. As a result, it may be very difficult for the government to achieve these targets. The other thing, now if we'll take certain sectors, now they are introducing these withholding taxes. In certain sectors, the withholding tax rate, now when the net profit ratio comes down, the withholding tax rate, whatever the withholding tax what we are paying, may be much more higher than the actual final income tax. Because when our ultimate profit is less, ultimate profit percentage is less, the withholding tax what we are paying will end up with overpayment. With all these things, what will happen, the government will not be in a position to achieve their targets in future with the country's common situation.
Right. Am I audible? Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. Atula, if the rent or professional charges is about 100,000, there is a 10% withholding VAT, correct?
Withholding tax.
Yeah. Right. So if you take a person, say 150,000 earned as a rent income or professional fee for a year is around rupees 1.8 million, meaning of 10% deduct, which is rupees 180,000. Tax should be paid if annual income is over rupees 1.8 million. Now I was referring to Dr. Dami's presentation. If there is a rent income, it will be subjected to 25% rent relief. Now it's understandable. Then 75% only liable for taxes. When we consider all these factors, we can see that people are not liable for tax. Such situation, there will be a refund. People are paying unnecessarily rupees 180,000 to the government as withholding tax. It is a disadvantage to the people. I mean, what's your view on that?
Yeah, now what will happen? First of all, we have to see out of these withholding taxes, now they are introducing several withholding taxes. Withholding tax on interest income, withholding tax on dividend income, withholding tax on rent income, withholding 5% withholding tax on individuals' service income. And there will be a withholding tax on contract payments. Now, out of these withholding tax, we have to identify what are the withholding taxes called as final withholding tax. Now, what will happen? The dividend withholding tax of 14% will be a final withholding tax. And 5% withholding tax on interest income on individuals will be a final withholding tax. Now, in the case of final withholding tax, you can't ask for a refund. That is the final payment. But in the case of rent, the 10% withholding tax will not be a final withholding tax. Now, in that case, what we have to do is to open a file, declare your income, and claim a refund. But anyway, getting a refund from Inland Revenue Department may not be an easy task. Not because of the issue at the Inland Revenue Department level. The main issue is the government financial situation. And there are so many barriers of getting refunds. Practical barriers are there. Therefore, getting a refund is a very difficult task. But the only approach is that you have to open a tax file, declare your income, and 10% withholding tax on the rent will not be a final withholding tax. Therefore, you are entitled for a refund of that. You have to go through that process.
Right. Erika, one more question. Ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing the impact of new tax proposal changes and impact of income tax and VAT. We have Mr. Atul Ranavira, who's an expert, legendary person with regards to this field, and we have Senior Deputy Commissioner, the Department of Inland Revenue, Saman Disanayaka, and of course, Dr. Damit Gangudu-Vilage, who's in this forum for the past 2 hours, I guess. Someone, I mean, as a senior deputy commissioner, prior to 2011, there was a tax direction system to avoid the disadvantageous situation. Will tax department introduce the same mechanism?
Dr. Hashan, you asked about the tax direction.
Direction, correct.
Up to now, there is no such kind of procedure. In the Inland Revenue Act number 24, 2017, as I highlighted, the concept and the rationale behind that is opening tax file where necessary. Then, therefore, if you want to claim a tax refund, then you have to follow the proceedings. The proceedings means you have to file a tax return and then you can claim the refund. But in practical scenario, as Atula highlighted there will be barriers, but in the law itself, there are relevant sections that time bar rule is applicable for Inland Revenue Department. For auditing is having around 30 months, but refunds less period. Therefore, from 2018-19 year of assessment onwards, Inland Revenue also given a priority for the returns they are received with the tax refunds. Therefore, there is a process that accelerating the refund procedure in the Act itself. Therefore, no direction mechanism is available within the legal framework of the Inland Revenue Act number 24/2017.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Saman, with regards to that. Atula, I would like to come back to you. Social Security Contribution Levy, SSCL, has been introduced. This bill was gazetted on June 21st and comes to operation with effect from July 1st, 2022. This is more or less similar to NBT. When the taxpayer go to pay SSCL, whether they are permitted to on-pass SSCL to the customers. Atula. Someone, there'll be a reflection to you as well.
Okay. Now, if you are saying that it is similar to NBT, there's one major differentiation from NBT, because in NBT we had some input credit only in the case of raw materials for the process of manufacturing. But in this case, there won't be any input credit. As per the bill, there won't be any input credit. That is one difference between these two. The second question, now even in NBT, there wasn't any barrier for you to pass that burden to the next person. There wasn't any barrier. As a result, in most of the cases, either the business people, they loaded that into their price, or they show their NBT component separately. Likewise, even in this SSCL, there aren't any barrier of any prohibition of charging from the next person. Therefore, for business people to survive, definitely they have to add that to the price, or they have to show this in the invoice itself and charge it from the next person. The best thing is, in our case, what we are advising to our client is to show on the face of the invoice and claim it, because we have to show what is the government tax, what is our price. We have to differentiate these two. Therefore, rather than hiding that, my advice, of course, best thing is to show on the invoice itself and pass that to the next person.
Right.
Dr. Ashan, let me give some feedback on that. Satula's answer is, I agree with Ms. Satula. Then, Then I have to explain this SSCL in this manner. We had the NSL at the beginning. If you compare the NSL Act together with the NBT Act, same features are available. And if you go to the SSCL, again same features are available. Time to time, if you consider at the beginning when the war was available, then we had the NSL. Then after war is over, then to develop the country, we had the NBT. And on the other hand, previously we had VAT rate 15 and remove the VAT, reduce the VAT to 12%. Then government lose the 3% revenue. That 3% has been collected through the NBT. Similar to that, country is in that situation today. Then government introduced this SSCL, and in the Act itself, similar to the NBT Act, it is silent feature. Then in the VAT, if anyone registered with the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue, is the agent of the Commissioner General to collect and pay. Then in the NBT, this is the tax charge on the turnover. Therefore, turnover is mine. Then if I register, I have to pay. On the other hand, whether it is passing to the customer, that means shifting to the customer, is depend on my bargaining power. That is what I experience in the NBT. Therefore, in the NBT, if you price 100 rupee, and if you put on your invoice as the NBT 2% previously, then your NBT liability will be not the 2 rupees, 102 into 2%. That means 2.04. If you consider your price is 100, including NBT, okay, then you have to pay 2%. On the other hand, if you consider your price is 98 previously, 98, and if you consider 2% is NBT, that is wrong. Then you are liable only 1.96, 92 into 2%. Therefore, there were 4 types of calculation in the NBT. Major 3 types I have highlighted. Other one is different, it depends. Then singular features available. That is why I told you, if you compare NBT Act together with the SSCL, same features available. That is a very important point. When I look at the NBT, SSCL bill, I noticed the wrong thing first. What is the wrong thing? 25% is applied for the wholesale retail sector. 50% is applied for the distributor. But NBT, if you consider, when the BTT has been removed in the 2011 January, and wholesale retail sector captured into the NBT scenario, NBT net, that is the rule, because in the BTT, wholesale retail people paid 1% of the turnover. Then NBT is 2% of the turnover. Therefore, to rationalize that, 50% of the wholesale retail people should pay 2% on the turnover. Ultimately, tax impact is same 1%. Distributor paid 0.5 on the turnover, BTT. Then to mitigate that barrier, same 25% of the turnover is applicable for the distributor. But when I look at into the bill, I was surprised, and I definitely noticed that this will be changed. On the other hand, 2-3 days back, the one discussion, I highlighted this also. And it was happened today. As Ms. Atul highlighted, now that is why I asked you to compare the NSL Act, NBT Act, and SSCL, same features available. On the other hand, accepted articles and accepted services, if you consider, most are similar. Only thing is, in the current scenario, since the no input tax mechanism is available, regarding manufacturer, we have given 15% turnover relief. For then that same impact, then 85% of the turnover is live.
Okay, very clear. Someone also now you enclose, I mean you disclose that the VAT is being increased. VAT threshold reduced from 300 mil to 120 mil, but the rate has increased from 8% to 12%. As a result, cost of goods will go up, cost of living will go up, increase, double effect on price. Small medium entrepreneurs, can they sustain in this situation? I mean, we were asked to promote SMEs culture, but can they sustain right now or to the future?
Yeah, when compared with the turnover-based taxes, if we consider the value-added tax, the tax liabilities arises only on the value addition. On the other hand, the burden can be shifted to the ultimate customer. Because if it is a SME sector engaged in the export, we have 0 rate. Therefore, refund scheme is available. On the other hand, to mitigate the cash flow trouble regarding importation point, we have deferment facility, and also locally we have SLTC scheme. Therefore, using those schemes, taxpayer can mitigate the barriers, even cash flow issues. Because if the refund is available, to claim refund, taxpayer should submit the return. Then wait, so to submit the return, 1 month should be wait, and on the other hand, refund procedure should be followed. That is why we have deferment facility and SLT scheme for those specified areas. In addition to that, regarding normal SME sector people, I think VAT is not a big challenge. They can manage.
Okay.
If they are having the proper input-output mechanism, then it's okay.
So meaning they need expert opinion, expert advisory, some kind of a channel going into them. Otherwise, they won't be able to sustain. That's what you're saying.
Yes, very good.
All right. Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the final session of impact of new tax proposals. changes and impact of income tax and VAT. The final session, I would like to ask from three of you, you can share this question and answer. What is your final message to the government or the policy maker in implementing the tax policy in the country? I repeat, what is your final message to the government or the policy maker in implementing the tax policy in the country? Let's start with you, Mr. Sama.
May I start, Dr. Hashan?
Please go ahead.
Yes, I think I can explain that using my 6 forces model. The first C is the player is the policy maker. As I highlighted at the beginning, we should have a proper policy framework which is consistent, because the inconsistent tax system is always trouble to taxpayers, tax consultants, and tax authority. That means tax administrator. Therefore, we should have a proper policy framework for at least 3, 4, 5 years. Then taxpayer knows that this is the tax policy going on. Tax consultant knows that this is the way that we have to consult. On the other hand, especially country situation, we are inviting to come to the country to investors, bring the foreign direct investment. If our tax system is always changing, they are not confident about their investing. That is why you can have the proper understanding now. Most of the textile industry people shifting their businesses to Bangladesh, Vietnam, India. Then that is the reason. Inconsistent tax policy framework. That is my understanding. According to my readings and other research things I have done, I noticed that some decisions we have to consider it is a policy decision, not any other type of decision like political decision. Therefore, as a tax administrator also, we are penalized on that. The point that I am giving as a message, take-home message, policy makers should make the policies with the consistent manner, which should be continue at least around 5 years, like
So
India does.
What India does, you are proposing this to the government?
Always we are proposing.
That's the thing. Too many proposals, but no execution. That's why the country is right now in this situation. Azula, your view on this?
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing to Saman's idea. Now, in the case of this legislation, there are so many weaknesses, loopholes in these legislations. Now, if we'll take even this SSL bill, now if you see the exemption schedule, the tea sector is separately addressed to, then rubber, cinnamon, milk, those 3 sectors separately identified and addressed to. But what has happened to the coconut? Coconut sector is not addressed to. Now, out of Sri Lanka coconut fiber, almost more than 90% is for the export market. Even in the case of coconut, we are exporting desiccated coconut and various types of coconut and the coconut oil. Now, in that case, we have not identified coconut as a exempted item. Now, likewise, there are certain other things also. Now, in our case, we are exporting a lot of vegetables to certain countries like Maldives and all. Now, that is also not addressed to. Now, what will happen when we are not addressing those things directly, we have to follow the normal routine of indirect export. Now, following of indirect export route is not much easy. For this farmers level, it is not easy. Therefore, now, especially in this SSCL bill, there are a lot more to improve. And if we'll take the tip scheme import and duty-free import, some of those things are not properly addressed to. Now, under temporary import for export purposes. and under BOI duty-free imports, those things are not directly addressed to. There are provisions to address that. That is that. Then, with relate to this indirect export, definitely we have to introduce a system of back-to-back LC system. Otherwise, people will misuse it. Now, the problem nowadays, if we'll introduce a back-to-back LC system, if we are open in LCs, yes, that we can accommodate that. But there are a lot of DP term exports, DA term export. When there are DA terms and DP term exports, there's no LCs. In that case, it is very difficult to introduce this back-to-back LCs on those type of exports. That may be the reason why they have not addressed it here. But no sooner these areas are not directly addressed, always we have to fight with the Revenue Department. And ultimately, the tax administrator's time as well as the taxpayer's money will lose, because taxpayer may have to appoint a tax consultant to handle that. It's a costly affair. That is that. Then even when we take the Inland Revenue Act, there are a lot of weaknesses in these definitions, especially in the agriculture definitions, the agro-processing definition. Some of the agriculture has gone to agro-processing. Now, if we'll take cinnamon, if we'll take paddy, if we'll take maize, that is corn. Now, as per this definition, all these three sectors won't come under agriculture. It goes into the agro-processing. That's an error in the definition. Therefore, we shouldn't leave this type of errors or loopholes or weaknesses in these definitions. The other thing, we have to keep the tax administrator as the tax administrator, taxpayer and the tax consultant as the taxpayers and the tax consultants, and the policymakers as the policymakers. We shouldn't interfere the tax administrator to make policies. At the same time, we shouldn't allow the tax consultants and taxpayers to go and interfere into the policy making. Therefore, we have to separate this thing. To separate it, the best thing is to have proper comprehensive legislations. Proper and comprehensive legislation. Unfortunately, we had, at that time, we had well-developed Inland Revenue Act. But unfortunately, we withdrew that and introduced a new act, which is not comprehensive enough. That is one of the main weakness which has happened at that time. That is mainly because of IMF intervention. Right. Now, with that, I think for a proper tax system, definitely we have to address to these few things which I have discussed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Damit. We want your final view to this valuable piece of work.
Yes, Dr. Hashan, I think Mr. Saman highlighted the certain policy aspects and the practicality of aspects by the Mr. Atula. Now, when you look at actually Sri Lankan economy, so it is targeted this year to be 83 billion US dollars. Now, the thing is, when you targeted that, so then the Mr. Atula also highlighted, so what is our hidden economy? Is almost 50% of our normal economy. So then, whatever the policy we have developed, whatever the things we have introduced, then the 50% is in the hidden economy. Then the important factor is how we can increase the traceability level. So that's the main concern department and the policy maker has to think of. Then for that, you need to bring the connectivity between all the value chain, compliance value chain activities. When you end-to-end connectivity, all the compliance value chain activities through the end-to-end connectivity, probably you can increase your traceability. That's why I highlighted earlier, you have to have the collaboration. That Mr. Saman is highlighted very interesting model, 60 poses, right? So these all 60 poses, this pose model has to be collaborated. Then once you collaborated, then automatically you can connect the compliance value chain to increase the traceability level. So that's the main concern has to be done. Then for that, the other important thing, you have to introduce committed compliance system in the country. So other countries, someone highlighted Australia, right? So it's a very well-crafted system. So world that OECD is also take as an example and generalize, and the generic model produced to the world to use that ATO model, Australian Tax Officers model. So through that, I think like that, we need to introduce the committed compliance system in the country. Otherwise, you are not going to sustain. These policies not going to work, right? And then the other thing, the technology is continuously increasing in the world. So department also adopted up to some extent, right? So therefore, now we have only two compliance systems, voluntary compliance and the enforcement compliance. So what my suggestion is, so you need to introduced the confirmatory compliance system. You don't need to wait until the taxpayers file the return and go behind that. Through the system, once you connected the compliance value chain, automatically department will be, detail will be reflected to the department. Then only they need to ask from the taxpayers whether these things are correct. If it is correct, confirm and go ahead. Automatically systems will be filled all the things. The burden to the taxpayer will be eliminated. Right? That's the systems we need to bring it. Mr. Atula highlighted for that very important factor, trust. Right? In the tax compliance system, not only in Sri Lanka, everywhere, trust is the key factor. So you have to maintain trust among the people, among the business. So that's why someone is introduced stable tax system. Now in India, there's 6 prime ministers, but only one national policy. 6 prime ministers, one national policy. So that's how they improve and inculcate the confidence in the minds of investors. Because when you're going to change, now let's say if you're going to change introduce small change, imagine that all the people, big companies, everyone is using the technology system. They need to do the changes. Sometimes the cost benefit of that changes may not be there because of if you're taking entire compliance cost in the country, right? So because we don't have that value, because level of the compliance is not calculating, and the tax gap also, Mr. Saman, I think not accurately calculating in the country. So that's an important thing. For that, the trust has to be increased. There is no excuse. So then you have to map the tax revenue to the public expenditure. That's what again, Mr. Atula highlighted. So that's a very important thing. And corruption's level has to be eliminated. For that, you need to remove the political parties from the mechanism on this tax administration. And also, then you need to have the service-oriented tax system in this country. But Mr. Saman, I know that is very, very good tax officers we find from the Department of Inland Revenue. But still, there is a bureaucratic system in the country. So we have to eliminate that bureaucratic system. World is moving for the service-oriented tax system from the antagonistic tax system. That's how you need to build the trust in the minds of taxpayers. And the other one, so you have to use up to some extent power. Without that, human nature is that without power, you can't do, but not the penalty-driven tax system. Reward-driven tax system has to be introduced in the country. So we talk about, Mr. Atula, that refund is not an easy task, even though there is a 4 years period for you to file and get the refund. But still, once you go to the money goes to the treasury, is a very tedious task to get back. Then you need to have a proper refund system. So then that's what I told. We are introducing the committed tax system, that reward-driven system is the most important thing for increasing this compliance level in the country. Right. So for that, then the other one, then you need to increase the awareness. Almost that's why people are having fear about taxes. Then you need to, Hashan, more and more, because department is doing that part, but it is not enough that taxpayer literacy, increase the taxpayer literacy. So all the curricula has to introduce that taxation or the compliance management as a part of the curricula. Not only O levels, A levels, right, and the universities all has to introduce to as a main subject, then the people who are coming out from these colleges knows that, okay, that is our social responsibility in the country. Everyone knows accounting, right? If you are starting the business, so you know that you have to prepare accounts. You need to calculate the profit and loss, but nobody knows you have to pay the taxes. There's a tax liability on you, right? Why our education systems not included that one, right? So those are the main important thing you have to look at. Then whatever the state we are looking at in these discussions, we can bring it through this good policy implementation.
Oh, okay. Right. All what you have mentioned will be documented very soon and will be circulated for checking whether we can give a copy to the government as well as to the people who are interested in making this particular framework of what someone just mentioned. I mean, that's the talk of, I mean, that's the key take home today. There are many, but my main thing, my main focus went into that framework. If that works, all what we discussed today will be workable. So with that note, let me conclude the entire session before we go to the vote of thanks. Management guru Peter Drucker once said, the ultimate resource in economic development is people. It is people, not capital or raw materials, that develop an economy, right? So it's people whom we are going to earn from, right, through taxes. And people don't realize that most of the government servants, excluding people like someone who's in the government servant, but most of the people don't realize that they are being fed through tax money that's being collected. And the wrong impression that's been created that tax is a hassle, like what Dr. Damit said, from the ancient British colonial system, that you're forced to pay something to the Queen. That's a wrong impression. Today, youngsters also are not aware fully as to what this entire role of tax is. So the impact of new tax proposals, absolutely clear. If someone wants to have a what do you call kind of a thesis to the MBA or to a PhD, well, if he or she listens to this 2 hours, I think without a problem, they can find loads of solutions, especially the topics that was not discussed on public, we discussed today. And we are very proud of the launch of SLTC Insider, powered by SLTC Business School. And we would now like to invite the man behind the pillar that recently appointed to the school. He's one of the veterans in the industry, Dr. Nanda Gunawardana, Dean of Business School, to give away the vote of thanks. What do you say?
Thank you very much, Hashan. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, clearly.
Yeah. Since time is running short, I'll be very brief. So I think today we had a very productive, thought-provoking discussion and also a presentation to enlighten the importance of tax and impact of the new tax proposals. At the outset, I like to thank first our invited panelists, Mr. Saman Disanayake and Mr. Atula Ranavira, for coming here online and spending their valuable time to have a very productive discussion, and also accepting our invitation to participate in the inaugural session of SLTC Insider. And also, I would like to thank Dr. Damit Gangodavilage, our own Damit, for your keynote speech, very, very important keynote speech, especially people like me, those who are new to the tax system in Sri Lanka. And we have Dr. Hashan Haputantri. He is the man behind all the organizing team, and also did a wonderful job for coordinating with all stakeholders, with Damit and his team to organize this event. Thank you very much, Hashan, and all the SLTC team. And also, we cannot forget our head of school, Professor Hillary, always advising our team to organize this kind of events and supporting all of us to do this kind of new things to SLTC and to Sri Lankan audience. And we got a lot of support from SLTC staff members and SLTC students. So I would like to thank all of them. And also, we got audience today. I think we restricted some audience to this live discussion, but we have a lot of audience in our YouTube and Facebook channels. So thank you very much, you all, for joining with us today. And I think you have got, as Hashan mentioned, you got excellent knowledge. In fact, you can do a kind of dissertation for your MBA or PhD if you want to do. So thank you so much. And also, as a Dean of the school, I would like to invite for our Inside webinar series. We are going to join in next month with a new topic. So with that, I conclude my vote of thanks. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Thank you, Dr. Nanda. That was an excellent piece of words that encourage every one of us. And we look forward to the second episode, which is going to be on July last week. And with that note, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you, Atula, Saman, my friends, and of course, you, buddy, Damit, Dr. Damit. Dr. So very sorry for that, but I think we did a good job. It's a teamwork end of the day. So with that note, let me wish you a pleasant night, safe journey, and stay safe. God bless you all.